going to explain new Illinois laws which take effect January 1st, 2022. The Illinois legislature was very busy in 2021 with the passage of 300 new laws which are set to take effect on January 1st, 2022. Governor Pritzker signed a new criminal justice reform bill that aims to end cash bail in the state of Illinois and also seeks to reform the widespread police misconduct that has faced Illinois.
Okay, we're going to be talking about the clip I'm playing as folks began filtering in here, a very controversial law that took effect in the state of Illinois as of January 1, 2022. Republicans are trying to repeal this. This is the Illinois cash bail revocation law, if I'm getting the term straight. Good afternoon, all you guys who are coming in here. Tap the screen, get me. You know what I want to talk to. You know what I want to talk to. This is a MAGA-friendly page. So bring me my MAGA in here. You know how we like to do it. And once again, liberals are welcome. What are we talking about today? What's the topic? The Illinois cash reform bill law. Essentially, it's police reform boxed up and covering other things. I'm going to play a clip, which is what you were hearing a moment ago. That came from an Illinois attorney describing the bill when it was about to transition into law as of January 1, 2022. Now, the controversial parts of the bill is folks are being let out of police custody that have violent felonies, such as second-degree murder and violent crimes and things like that, because they have now suggested that while you are being charged with a crime, they can no longer impose bail on you. So if you go on and commit a horrible felony, well, until you're found guilty at trial, you're free to roam around. Now, the Republicans are viewing this as being soft on crime. I'm going to give it to you from a liberal perspective. And then I'm going to take your calls in the box. I see someone is already in the box. But this clip here is only about 40 or 50 seconds long. I invite you to listen to it. This is, like I said, this is from an attorney that is describing what Illinois did. Now, this is making a national news network. So this is not me delivering something to you that only pertains to the state of Illinois. It is something that could easily be followed in other liberal states. It's something that folks are suggesting that is putting criminals back on the streets in heavily crime areas like Chicago. But hear it out and we'll talk about it.
To reform the widespread police misconduct that has faced Illinois and the country as a whole, which has been under the microscope in the past.
Here we go.
In the recent past. Here are some of the highlights of the new Illinois criminal justice reform law. All Illinois police officers must wear a body camera on their person by 2025. Police officers within Chicago and the surrounding suburbs must wear body cameras by January 1st, 2022. This includes Cook County, Kane County, Lake County, and Will County. Police departments are prohibited from buying and or using military-grade equipment, such as .50 caliber guns and tanks. Police officers are now prohibited from chokeholds on suspects. Police officers in the state of Illinois are now required to train further on using force against suspects, crisis intervention, and first aid training. The Illinois minimum wage will increase January 1st, 2022 to $12 an hour and increase $1 per year per hour until January 1st, 2025, where it will plateau to $15 an hour.
I just like that last part. Okay, so what do you guys think? Now, no bail. So if you are charged with a violent felony, you have the right to go home, to hire an attorney, and prepare yourself for trial. How do you feel about not having bail for people who are charged with felonies? Now, there's a reason why bail was created, but we're going to talk about that. Going right to the box. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Okay. Program, always. Much love to you, okay, old timer. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, brother, what's going on?
Not much at all. What do you think about no bail? Good to see you there in the video.
Well, I'm kind of torn. I mean, to be honest with you, uh, if you take the marathon bomber, for instance, you catch somebody like that red-handed. There's witnesses around, saw him planting the device, got photos, got video of him doing it.
Okay.
I think in that situation, hold on, I
Let
think
me
in that
interrupt you.
situation,
Okay, let me
I think,
interrupt you and say, this. Even though it was not stated on that video, judges still do have the discretion to impose bail. So it doesn't take it completely out of their hands. If you're talking about somebody that has international ties, it could be a flight risk. They do have the discretion to impose bail.
well, in the situation that I was describing, it would be perfectly justified to impose a bail to keep that person off the street. However, on the other side of the coin, where I'm torn, is regardless of indictment and charges, you are not guilty until proven guilty by a court of law or jury of your peers.
Right.
So if you're not guilty, then, as bad as it may be, your constitutional rights are still there. You haven't lost them.
Yeah.
So so on that one,
It,
I'm kind of torn on that one.
Yeah, and see, my response to folks who are, as you say, torn about it, or even my folks on the right who are thinking that it's being softer in crime and leaving criminals out on the street, I would ask the question similar to what you just suggested. Which one is more important? Making sure that we properly punish criminals and hold them to account, or making sure that no innocent person is punished for something they didn't do? Because you can't get both. If you have a system where folks have to pay bail, let's say your ex-girlfriend accuses you of sexual assault, and she's able to convince police and the district attorney that you did it. You get charged with sexual assault. They give you a bail. If you cannot afford that bail, you are going to sit in jail until your trial comes. If you are found not guilty at trial, which could be a year to 3 years later, you will be set free. You don't get that year to 3 years you spent in jail back. So even though you're not guilty, you've lost legal fees and how much of your time is gone that you served in jail, and none of that is returned. So that's why I ask folks, which one is more important? Punishing criminals and making sure they're held to account, or making sure that no innocent folks serve time for a crime they didn't commit? Because you cannot get both in a bail-based system.
Well, my personal opinion is, in everything that I've seen and the way and where I grew up, and our judicial system needs a great big overhaul, because the past has proven they'll let 99 known convicts go to save one possible innocent. And in one aspect, it's good. You don't want the innocent to serve, but it's already proven that in doing that, too many innocents have actually served long terms.
Yeah, yeah. In Illinois, for instance, being a liberal state, in 2003, they imposed a moratorium on the death penalty, for instance. And in 2011, a different governor completely abolished the death penalty. And the reason why? Too many innocent folks, too many people sitting on death row waiting to be executed, were found completely innocent of their crimes through police corruption, bad lawyering, and things like that. So they just decided we're going to get rid of it. Now, when you look at states like Texas and Florida, they're passing laws to hasten their right to execute you. If Florida could execute, if Illinois could have executed people with the speed that they do in Texas, which is about 5 or 6 years, Illinois would have killed some innocent people. The only thing that saved those people's lives is they were able to sit on death row long enough for cooler heads to prevail and folks to find out they were innocent. So the faster you punish, the more likely you are to make mistakes. So you're torn on this, though. If you had to pick which way.
The faster you punish, the more likely you are to make mistakes. But the death penalty is not pulled away to keep people alive. The death penalty is pulled away to ensure an income. If for instance, we're in one of those states that has a death penalty, but the judge that's going to administer that is buddy with the DA, buddy with the
Yeah.
defense counsel, whatever it may be. If they can keep you alive for life, that's an income and representation for your life. That's your income. And since our inmates are bought and sold like stocks, that's more money for the systems. If they, thank you, honey. If they put you, like in Texas, with 3 credible witnesses, you go to the head of the lane, the express lane for the death penalty. Well, your income stops as soon as their their last breath is gone. Then you got to go find another source of income. It's
that sounds horrible, man. Wow, that sounds bad.
It is horrible, but it's the plain and simple truth. I mean, they try to say it costs. I talked to a representative, and he was anti-death penalty, and understandably why. But he said, it costs too much money to execute somebody. And I said, well, there you're full of it, because if somebody gets a death sentence at 18 years old when they're an adult, you keep them alive for life. You've spent, if they live to 65, 70 years old, you've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands keeping them alive. I said there was a point in time that, our government even still goes over and execute people for $9.95 a box.
Well, my point on this one, I'm often talking to my beloved MAGA folks that I like talking to all the time. And tap the screen, folks. Get your boy up to 5,000. I ask that on every broadcast. But I always say when I'm talking to MAGA folks, they often talk about how they liked Trump because he was a businessman. And we need a businessman to lead the country. The points you and I are discussing right now shows you the dangers of when you run certain aspects of civilized society like a business. Here we're talking about executing people and basing it on how much money you can save or how much money you can earn, which is the primary tenet of running a business, is making money. There is no way in hell money should be involved in this at all. You're talking about killing people. You're talking about incarcerating people and things like that. Nothing about making profit or saving money should be involved in this if we're being morally correct. You see any of that?
Well, yeah, I do, but unfortunately, that's not the way it is, because our jails are run as a business. I mean, I think there's currently more private investors and private held medium and maximum security facilities than there are publicly funded right now, because it's such a big booming business. So the more people they can throw under the bus and put in there, the more they have to trade, and the higher their value goes. So, it's a hard one, because their bail, if they refuse your bail and you're not technically, everybody hollers that you're not guilty until you're found guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty. Then at that point, if you're not guilty until you're found guilty, your constitutional rights are still in effect, and you shouldn't be holed up.
So okay, so in regards to what you just stated, looks like I always point to some of the comments. Albert in the comments is suggesting that we have a 72-hour euthanasia law, euthanization law. 72 hours. If you're caught doing something, if you're convicted, I won't even say caught, because most people are not caught, they're just simply convicted. But if you're convicted of a heinous crime, he's suggesting a 72-hour euthanization law. What do you do with something like that?
Well, you better come with some strong witnesses if you're going to impose something like that, because there are people, unfortunately, that served 10 years plus that were found innocent.
Yeah. Well, even when you come to strong witnesses, I mean, how many folks, to bring up the president, how many highly respected folks are suggesting the president, talking about Trump, has done something wrong? Do we want to give, even strong witnesses can make a mistake, is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and I mean, but if you look at it, the aspect, our society's so messed up, it needs so much revamping. I mean, if my dog bites you, she's had a rabies vaccination, but animal control is still going to hold her for 10 days before they decide to put her down or not put her down.
Why? Why do they do that?
Well, to make certain that the rabies vax is good, and make certain that she didn't transmit rabies to you. Okay.
All right.
So
Fair.
if she has the right of 10 days life, 72 hours is a bit quick.
I didn't. Okay, yeah. Okay, you went around to that. That's pretty cool how you did that. Yeah, if a dog can get 10 days, how the hell you gonna euthanize a human being? Hey, okay, old timer, I gotta move it on. You know how I always
All right,
appreciate
brother.
talking to you, though, man.
You have
Absolutely
a
a
blessed
pleasure.
day.
You too, sir. Now, talking about here, folks, I'm gonna go right back to the box, but there are folks who have now filtered in since we've been talking. So I just want to let you hear this clip again. It's only yeah. Thank you for that hat and mustache. Just a short clip as to what we're talking about. This is coming from an Illinois attorney about the new Nobel laws.
In the recent past. Here are some of the highlights of the new Illinois criminal justice reform law. All Illinois police officers must wear a body camera on their person by 2025. Police officers within Chicago and the surrounding suburbs must wear body cameras by January 1st, 2022. This includes Cook County, Kane County, Lake County, and Will County. Police departments are prohibited from buying and or using military-grade equipment, such as .50 caliber guns and tanks. Police officers are now prohibited from chokeholds on suspects. Police officers in the state of Illinois are now required to train further on using force against suspects, crisis intervention, and first aid training. The Illinois minimum wage will increase January 1st, 2022 to $1 per year per hour until January 1st, 2025, where it will plateau to $15.
Dentrell, welcome back to the program. I always play that minimum wage part because I really like how they're increasing the minimum wage. Getting shot with a .50 caliber. The idea that you got to pass a law to prevent police from having what the hell would you need a .50 cal for in a local police department? What the hell? Dentrell, take it away.
Okay, so earlier, the person before me was mentioning about the death penalty. I want to share this information from the Death Penalty Information Center. 190 death row inmates have been totally exonerated. They also suggest that at least 4% of all inmates that were put to, unalived were innocent. Now, if that number doesn't scare you, imagine being one of those people. Many of those times, those credible witnesses lied.
Yeah.
And they come back
100%.
later, like the Emmett Till person, and admit that they lied.
Example. Yeah, good example. I'll tell you this, and I agree with who was that in the comments? Christy, who says one person is too many, killing one person who didn't deserve to die. But in this country, we are far more focused on revenge and retribution towards criminals as opposed to the innocents. For instance, if someone in Chicago under this new law is charged with a violent felony, does not have bail, and goes out and kills another person when they should have been in jail on bail, you'll hear all about that. But if another person is charged with murder or rape or something, spends 2 or 3 years in the county jail waiting for their trial, and they're found completely innocent, and as you say, somebody even lied, you won't hear that on right-wing news at all. They don't get it, even though that is a human being that spent 2, 3 years of their life in the county jail wrongfully for something that they didn't do. You won't hear that on you won't even hear it on left-wing media that much. And that happens to a lot of people.
Well, I like to say my life, I love my life because I have several chapters. When I was a senior in college, I had an apartment, and a lady in that apartment was a manager over a daycare. She stole the daycare deposits because back then everything was cash and checks, put it in her account, and claimed she was robbed. The daycare said, by who you said it hurt it, it was someone in your apartment. She pointed out me.
Damn.
So I was arrested for aggravated robbery based on her word. That's all. They searched my house. I had no record. I was in college. I had a job. They searched my apartment, found nothing. But it cost me, because it's aggravated robbery, it cost me $5,000 in bail. And by the time I finished paying the legal fees, it was $10,000. But guess what? If I was poor,
You just spent time in
I'd
jail.
have did that 20 years because it carries 10 to 20. And
You know, and I will say this because I often get when I'm debating back and forth with my MAGA folks, and I guess I'm just not going to get 5,000 likes from this audience. Nobody's tapping the damn screen. But I will say this. Hey, I gotta, if you can't sell yourself, then what the hell? All these patriots in here must be an audience full of liberals today because I'm not getting any love. But I'll tell you this. What really sucks is that when I'm arguing back and forth with MAGA or right wingers, they always say, well, African Americans commit more crimes. Look at the prison population. And I will tell you that a lot of that is based, as you pointed out, just on poverty. A lot of folks are serving time, particularly in the county jails, because they cannot afford bail, or they're serving time in prison because they could not afford a good lawyer. So when you look at the prison population, you can't really judge it based on who's in there because it's really based on poverty. And most of the people in the country that are poor look like you and I. So is it that they commit more crimes? No, it's they don't have enough money to beat the system. Really sorry to hear what happened to you. Did the courts or anything try to do anything to make that right? Or they just said, sorry, move on?
you know what? This is what happened. It got to a point, they kept resetting. This went on for a year. They kept resetting the court case. The prosecutor didn't want to take the L, but the judge finally looked up and said, wait a minute. Y'all have nothing. Y'all don't even have the witness anymore. The case is dropped, but I didn't get my money. So I wanted to go back and sue the city over it. And I had lawyers that said, I won't do that because they'll trump up a charge and put you under the jail so they don't have to pay.
Wow.
And this is the whole thing. We are also the most exonerated. We lead in exonerations after we're convicted. So this says that we are the most convicted and the most exonerated. Secondly,
go ahead.
Secondly, and I want to get this out before you drop me because I think someone needs to know this. When you talk about 13% of the population committing 50% of the violent acts, also remember those violent acts are under 7,000 or under 6,000 in acts. So 43 million. What percentage of 6,000 is 43 million? The percentage is only a half of a percentage, which means only a half a percentage of African American commit violent crimes. But you want us to be responsible for that 0.5%. And that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah, it's certainly when you look at, because somebody in the audience, I didn't get the name, but was saying that maybe it's because African Americans make bad decisions, and someone followed up and immediately stated, no, whites commit crimes too. But I mean, it doesn't matter how you feel about the races at all. Everybody knows that your experience with the criminal justice system, if you are charged with a crime, is greatly affected on how much income you have. There's no denying that. If you got income, you can pay bail. If you got income, you can afford lawyers. If you got income, you can get evidence. Like, you take a case like O.J. Simpson. With Johnny Cochran, first of all, the guy costs a fortune. Yeah, first of all, hiring Johnny Cochran is going to cost a fortune. But second of all, when you look at the evidence that someone like Cochran was able to present, he presented evidence that Mark Furman used the N-word based on a radio show on the East Coast decades ago. A public defender doesn't have access to look up shit like that. That's not going to come out, even though that greatly helped OJ's trial. If OJ is Leroy in the hood, he's serving time still right now. And folks don't seem to want to admit that at the end of the day, it's based on money.
Yeah, and one more thing. Earlier today, earlier the guy before me said that it costs money to house a prisoner. No, in the United States, that prisoner makes the state money. They get.
Elaborate on that.
Okay, It's called the prison industrial complex. And the funny thing is, Obama outlawed this particular instance where you get government funding and government contracts to house your prisoners and build things like roads and everything else. In 2017, when Trump got there, that was the first thing he reversed. Okay, so and they don't want to talk about that. Look it up, Google it, it'll tell you. He reversed it. So what happens is this: you have prisoners working in call centers. You have prisoners working on roads and building houses and everything else. You have private prisoners who are incorporated into Wall Street. So the more inmates you have is actually the more money you're going to make. And this was the loophole in the 13th Amendment that allowed for involuntary servitude. And it's worse than that because they could push it more, because if you are in debt, they could use that and you end up in debt and having to work that off. And it's being talked about. So
what you're essentially saying is that our modern day incarceration system for profit is an extension of slavery. I mean, it's still free labor and it's profitable, very similar to how slavery was. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. Dentrell, good talk. I got to move it on, man.
All right, now.
Absolutely a pleasure. Okay, looking in the comments. And yeah, slavery obviously was based primarily on African Americans, and there's obviously plenty of white people incarcerated. However, I do agree with the gentleman that that if you're incarcerated, particularly in prison, for the most part, you have to work. If you do not work, they will throw you in a hole, solitary confinement. There are plenty of prison channels out there. I watch a bunch of them. Larry Lawton, Big Hurt, any of you guys who watch this stuff, Lockdown 23-1. Yeah, I'm a correspondent, yours truly. I've been watching YouTube videos by ex-cons for years, and they interview guards and everything. So it's not just presented from a convict side of view. They have correctional guards on there and wardens and things on those programs all the time. But yeah, the prison industrial complex is profitable and it is loaded with free labor. If you ever seen the old movie Shawshank Redemption with Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins, it has a perfect scene in there in which the warden was using prison labor to do a construction project, and the construction company foreman was stating that you guys are putting us out of business because you have free labor and we cannot compete with you. So any business that convicts are doing, whether it's making furniture or hell, even making license plates, if the convicts didn't do that, that would be done by employees hired by the state, and people will be making money out of it. So make no mistake about it. Any job that convicts are engaged in is costing you and I employment. Those are jobs that people will be getting paid for, whether it's cleaning up highway trash or whatever. That's a job someone will be getting paid a salary for. Think about that, talking to my Republicans out there, when you often bring out illegals are taking jobs. When you're tough on crime and you promote incarceration, you're promoting job killers because that's what they're doing with it. All right, going back to the box. Appreciate those roses. Your financial guru.
How you doing, sir? So you're speaking on a subject I have personal experience in. My mom was in prison for 7 years for dealing $15 million in coke.
Damn. So she only got 7? She only got 7?
She got 40 years. Okay. But when the guy that she went to prison with died, because snitches get more than stitches, they let her out after 7 because she was involved in a whole gang scenario, right? So white or black, if you're poor and dumb, they're going to railroad you. It's bottom line. You can educate yourself. You don't have to be dumb. Being rich or poor is different, but you don't have to be dumb. And I teach a class about the jurisdiction. I teach it to people. Jurisdiction is how they hang you. And it starts from the very first minute that an officer asks for your name. You give them their first point of jurisdiction. And now they need 7 to win the case. That's why they have a 94% conviction rate. Because not everybody knows all the 7 cases or 7 points of jurisdiction to object. But if they don't get all 7...
Let me hear.
I don't know off the top of my head. I can send you the article. I'll send it to you. I'll send you the file.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
So,
7 points of what is the 7 point of jurisdiction? What does that even mean?
so juris means like think of judge, court, right? Jurisdiction, speech. So speech in the courtroom, right? Jurisdiction. Do you have authority over me with your speech? So I'll give you a great example.
Oh,
When you go in front of the judge, right, and you say, and they ask, "Do you understand me?" And you say, "Yes, I understand." Under Black's Law, sixth edition, that means I stand under your authority. Means you automatically, the first thing you answer them, you say, "I yield." You didn't even know it. Like I said, I understand, but in the legal language, you said I yield before you
okay.
even begin.
I'll submit to you 4 words. In my humble opinion, you can tell me where I'm wrong, or that folks in the comments can tell me where I'm wrong. But 4 words that would save a hell of a lot of people from doing a hell of a lot of time. Those 4 words are: when you're dealing with police, shut the fuck up. If you
All day,
did that, just that alone, just doing
all
that
day.
alone, yeah, would reduce a hell of a lot of convictions. Just shut the fuck up. I don't answer
That's right.
questions. Talk to my lawyer. If you got me, if I'm detained, if I'm arrested, just take me to jail. Just shut the fuck up. If
Yep.
people understood that alone, you would have a hell of a lot wrong for convictions and things like that.
It go a million miles. But the problem is you want
Yeah.
to comply either out of fear because you've been told XYZ about the policy officers. No, that's another thing. So we say police officer, it really is policy officer. And when it was originally spoken in the 1800s, that's what it was policy, police officer. Their jobs to enforce policies of the government, not laws. Sheriff is the only one that has legal authority in this country. All the rest are enforcements of policies. Well, policy is not a
Yeah.
law, but we're so screwed up, we don't even know. We don't know our rights. We don't know that we're acting under statutes. People just they don't know. And it's on purpose. It's
Well,
situational design.
it's also, well, it's not just the citizens that don't know their rights, also. Because even though I'm promoting people to shut the fuck up, there's a lot of cops that do really bad things to people who exercise their Fifth Amendment rights. The cops do not always allow you to exercise your constitutional rights. I don't want you to search my car without a warrant. Cops will come at you that way. If you tell
Yep.
them I don't want to talk, well, you're not speaking indicates guilt. So so the cops themselves need to be re-educated on the Constitution. I mean, there
Well,
are videos all over YouTube of citizens being harassed for simply filming the cops in public, even though the Supreme Court is fairly clear on that.
so
So we need
let me
to
give you a court case in Detroit that happened. I'll give you one. So
go
a
ahead.
guy I know gets pulled over, gets a ticket for his car for speeding or whatever. He goes to fight the court case, and the Zoom calls it with a judge, right? Because he can fight his ticket. They listed the victim, the truck. So the court case, the victim was the truck. Now you're asking yourself, why was the victim the truck? Because the truck is registered to the state, and the state says, well, you may have injured my property, so I'm calling you to court to deal with the fact you could have wrecked my property. And that's why you can't stand on much of anything inside your vehicle because you've registered your damn vehicle with the state and you gave them authority over your vehicle. So you're
Yeah.
stuck. You're riding in loaned property as far as the state's concerned. So an officer friendly taps on your window and he's like, hey, by the way, you're being careless with our property. You better not do that. I'll have to beat you up. Here's your ticket as a warning. It's because you're screwed from the beginning. And there's public acts that they overwrote with statutes that's not supposed to be possible. And so it's part of the class of some of the stuff we teach. So you start to learn how they've really hung us out to dry. And you start to
So
really realize,
So I have to ask, were Republicans, being the party of law and order, and
no, they're
obviously
not.
I implore everyone to comply with the law. Do not run, do not resist, no matter what you're doing. Never do those two things. But I would ask this: why do you think so many Republicans are against a bail reform law like Illinois is dealing with, where they're going to get rid of cash bail to try to protect innocents from doing time that they didn't deserve to do? Why are Republicans so strongly against this?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak. I'm not a Republican. And, we've had this conversation before.
Right.
I'm a Trumplican, right? So now we're a different breed. But if I go to standard traditional, which we think of as a Republican position, it's still control. Both parties are the same coin. One does it with one group of people to control. One does it with another group of people to control. Because if they have control, they have money, they have a system. They set up the system, and then they want to run the system and let you process through it as they deem fit. So Republicans that create that end of the system believe law and order is about control, or to the point of excessive at some points, because they're willing to quash your liberty to maintain a control system, right? Where on the other side, traditionally Democrats are like, our control systems through economic benefit, so we're going to do it that way. We're going to create economic benefit and get you to be underneath our label. But they both have a similar agenda, and that's controlling you. Neither side is your buddy. Neither
Fair
side.
point. Fair point.
It's,
All right,
it's we the
Guru,
people
I
or
got to
nothing.
move it on. Always
All
good
right,
to talk
man.
to you.
You as
Good to
well.
hear
Enjoy
from
your weekend.
you. All right, real quick, I just want to drop this on you again because I like it. Being candid, your humble correspondent, I like this. Now, I understand a lot of my MAGA folks, a lot of my right-wingers have a problem with it, but I like it. So, real quick, here you go. I want you to hear this again. This is an Illinois attorney describing this new law.
Here are some of the highlights of the new Illinois criminal justice reform law. All Illinois police officers must wear a body camera on their person by 2025. Police officers within Chicago and the surrounding suburbs must wear body cameras by January 1st, 2022. This includes Cook County, Kane County, Lake County, and Will County. Police departments are prohibited from buying and or using military-grade equipment, such as .50 caliber guns and tanks. Police officers are now prohibited from chokeholds on suspects. Police officers in the state of Illinois are now required to train further on using force against suspects, crisis intervention, and first aid training. The Illinois minimum...
Okay, why are so many Republicans against that? I mean, I just want to know that. Obviously, my previous caller was not a Republican, so he wasn't able to answer that question, and that's fine. But why are so many Republicans? Have you seen what a .50 caliber round looks like? Under what circumstance would you need to use a .50 cal on the average criminal? I mean, maybe David Koresh? Maybe someone you want to shoot from a mountainside or some shit? Why would you need a .50 caliber round on an American suspect? If you've ever seen what a .50 caliber round does to the human body, you'd understand my point. I'm talking about taking off whole limbs. You ever seen a watermelon explode? I'm talking about shit like that. A .50 caliber round is a big ass round. Why would a police need that? I see in the comments, Mufasa said a .50 caliber is for Black Lives Matter. Yeah. If you want to shoot in the crowd, maybe kill 7 or 8 of them at once. Yeah, I can see that. And it's obviously racist, as is the comment. Looking in the comments here, but Chicago is going to catch and release bad criminals too, no bail. And go right back to the box, but CSE Ward, in regards to catching and releasing bad people, unfortunately, you're correct. There are going to be some folks who should be sitting in jail, but because there is no bail, they're going to get out and commit another crime while they are out on bail. Such as, you beat the hell out of your wife. She calls the police. You get arrested. You get out of jail. You're pissed off with your wife for the experience, and you go beat her up again. Now, the judges do have discretion. Let me make that clear. The judge can actually impose bail, so it doesn't tie the judge's hands up. It's not like the 3-strike laws and mandatory minimums of the drug war where the judges did not even have discretion. They can impose bail if they think you are a danger. So let's not go too far with it. However, as CSE Ward was suggesting, there are going to be bad guys that are let out. However, in this country, we are a revenge-based nation. And obviously there's for-profit prisons. But we are a revenge-based nation, which means that we are more focused on revenge than the protection of innocence, which is why this bill is unpopular to some. I'd rather you get the bad guys and not worry so much about the innocent guys. Because you can't do both. You can't do both. Let me go back to the comments, or better yet, the box. Just a dad friend of the program. We talked last night. Justin, back. What do you think? Why are the Republicans hating on this so much?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, maybe sometimes they talk about less regulations. I'd really love to hear a Republican answer that. I can't justify it. So
Yeah, what amazes me is that Illinois is the first state to even do this. The first state to even suggest that we need to consider folks who are spending time in the county jail waiting for trial for crimes they didn't commit. Up until now, nobody gave a shit about them. It's just always been about keeping bad guys in jail. But yeah, there's a lot of innocent folks that are sitting in there waiting for their trial too.
yeah, I hope there's a Republican. I really would love to hear an answer for that, or what they would see is wrong with that. But what I wanted to ask you a question slightly off that topic, but
Sure,
and get your thoughts on something. What
sure.
do you think? What would be your thoughts on maybe the Democratic Party trying to get a very moderate Republican in Congress and getting them to switch sides and maybe throwing their head in for the race for the next presidential race? I know that there's going to be issues with all their values and everything may not line up, but
Okay. When you say moderate Republican, someone like Nikki Haley comes to mind, or Ben Carson. So you're suggesting that the Democrats should try to promote someone like that to become president for what purpose?
mainly to make sure, I'm 100% sure that we win the next election. If you get a moderate Republican that will still be able to tear away some of the Republicans that are on the or tear away some Republicans to vote for them. And I'm thinking someone like an Adam Kissinger or Liz Cheney, even maybe.
Liz Cheney, wait. Liz Cheney, despite what she's doing on January 6th, Liz Cheney is not a moderate Republican.
No,
She voted with Trump over 90% of the time.
yeah, and that's just, but her career's over as Republican anyway. And so I don't believe, I think a lot of her stuff that was, case in point about the statement a while back when she was first running about how she didn't agree with gay marriage. And her sister, of course, is gay and married.
Right.
And so a lot of her stuff, and maybe that's not what we like in a politician, so I get that. But
yeah, she's also very strict pro-life. She don't even believe in a lot of exceptions for the mom. So she's not a moderate. She just doesn't like Trump.
yeah, and that's understood. But I think what impresses her, and I think would be, and not even so much her, but Adam Kissinger. It's another one. But I'm not selecting a certain candidate as much, but it's really
Let me answer your question. To answer your question, I'm totally against that. If you're talking about putting in a moderate and hoping to win the election, most moderate Republicans are still going to be in favor of policies that liberals are totally against. I just mentioned Cheney in terms of being pro-life. We're talking about criminal justice right now. Most moderate Republicans are still on the side of lock everybody up. So I don't think you would get most Democrats to be behind a moderate Republican, and certainly in this environment right now where we're so polarized, just the word conservative is a fear. It creates a fear in Democrats. So even if he's moderate, the fact that he's a conservative, you're not going to get liberals behind that.
Yeah, and I know the word conservative has been turned into a bad word.
Yeah, it is.
Unfortunately, I mean, it's not inherently a bad thing. It's just
no, it's not. Well,
and
I mean, we've had a lot of division, particularly started with Obama. Trump took it to a whole new level, and the parties now do not like each other. Even though, despite the conservative movement being heavily demonized because of Trump, Trump is not a conservative, and he is to some degree changing the entire narrative of the Republican Party.
Agreed.
Because, yeah, the Republican Party, just like the Democratic Party, are based on principles. If you're Republican, you tend to be pro-life, pro-military, up until January 6th, pro-police and things like that. That's what the Republican Party is based on. The MAGA Party is based on Trump. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is if Trump says Kim Jong-un of North Korea, we need to stop being enemies and perhaps investigate, maybe working something out, MAGA is down with that. If the next day he says, Kim Jong-un was talking too much shit, he was a danger and I had to bomb him, they're okay with that too. As whatever Trump says, MAGA follows behind that. The Republican Party is based on principles. MAGA is based on Trump.
100% agreed. 100%
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, I just
So-
figured there'd be someone out there that they could find that could, do that. But it's just so hard for me to find what Democrat is going to step up, because I don't think that if Trump doesn't run, I don't think that Biden will.
Gavin Newsom. I really believe Gavin Newsom is lining up. Obviously, he's going to take.
Well, he just changed parties. He just changed parties. He just changed parties too.
Well, I think the Democrats would get behind Gavin Newsom if you can get some of the other bigger Democrats like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama to endorse him. I think Gavin Newsom might be on deck. We'll see what happens with Biden first, though.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll see what happens with Biden. But if you can get folks like Obama to do stump speeches, the more popular folks, obviously Michelle Obama, maybe you can get Bernie Sanders and AOC in there for the younger crowd. I think Gavin Newsom, he's a nice looking guy and looks do matter. Talk about Marco Rubio's small hands and shit like that. Looks do matter. California is a mess. California's a mess, so he's going to have to do something and explain that. But I believe Gavin Newsom is on deck.
Okay, Gavin Newsom, California. I was thinking, what's that? Who is that guy that's running in Florida against DeSantis? Confused his name. He switched parties.
I know, and he's not doing bad either. I cannot think of his name, but he's actually not doing bad against Gavin Newsom. But I don't think he has enough notoriety with the Democrats yet.
No, not Gavin Newsom. There's the one that's running that just
No, I know you're talking about running against DeSantis. I cannot think of the gentleman's name that's running against DeSantis, but he is not doing that bad. Although the Republicans love Gavin Newsom, but his poll numbers against love DeSantis. I keep saying Gavin Newsom. The Republicans love DeSantis, but his competitor down in Florida is not doing that bad. I cannot think of his name right now, though. But he doesn't have enough popularity with Democrats to be a Gavin Newsom type yet.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, okay. I just wanted to hear
Charlie Crist. I see it in the comments. Charlie Crist.
Charlie Crist. That's right.
Yeah.
There it goes. But yeah, he impressed me with the speech he gave. But I don't know much about him. But he would be an option like that. But I agree. I'm not saying it'd be easy or anything, and they probably wouldn't make it out of the primaries. But
yeah, we'll see. As long as Trump keeps talking, I will just say this: despite Biden's economy and the lack of enthusiasm that liberals have for Biden, as long as Trump keeps talking, there is always hope. I got to move it on, though, man.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate it.
Good talk. All right, looking in the comments, 52.
Jack says in the comments, how can you not like DeSantis? Well, the liberals are for CRT. The liberals are pro-LGBT. The liberals are for a minimum wage increase. Ron DeSantis is not in favor of any of this shit. So that's how you cannot like DeSantis. If you're a liberal, he is the anti-liberal. But let me bring 52 Cent on.
Him in the comments. We always respect and love 52 Cent. 52, good afternoon.
Like I said, how can you not love Ron DeSantis?
I just gave you examples. What do you think about those?
Everything you gave me is reason to love Ron DeSantis.
He's anti-LGBT. That's a reason to love him?
Love Ron DeSantis.
He's anti-CRT. That's a reason to love him?
Love him like a brother.
He's anti-wearing masks in the middle of a pandemic. That's a reason to love him?
Hell yes, I can breathe.
All right, 52. You know you never disappoint. So what about this Illinois no bail, or they revoke, rolling back bail on criminals? Are you for or against that?
I don't like the thought of it for the pure and simple fact I would rather 10 innocent people sit in jail than one rapist or murderer get set free and let him do it again. It's a
So
double-edged sword.
Yeah. So you're more for punishing the guilty as opposed to looking out for the innocent.
No, I am more for making sure we don't make the mistake of letting a guilty person out that'll reoffend. If it costs, if there's a casualty along the way, it's like friendly fire in a battle. Yeah, we're going to lose some guys, but if that friendly fire knocks out the enemy, yeah, it was a bad thing. However, it was for the better good.
Pat Tillman would be proud. Shout out to the late Pat Tillman, died in friendly fire over in was it Afghanistan or Iraq? I don't know about that. If you are America first, pro America, how could you be willing to accept innocents doing prison time?
I don't. It isn't the preferred method, but if it prevents your daughter from getting abducted and killed, it was worth the sacrifice.
But what if my son ends up serving time he didn't deserve? I mean, you're talking about my daughter. What if I got a son that is spending time in prison for something he didn't do? Is he not a concern as well?
Thank you, the Feig. 53 is my IQ. That's a compliment. I appreciate you. I do.
Okay.
You know, we need to go to dinner and have a beer. But anyways.
Innocence. Back to the innocence. What if somebody's son is serving time for a crime they didn't do? Let's say, for instance, you couldn't afford bail. You spent 3 years in the county waiting for your trial to come up, and it was proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you never should have been charged. How do you feel about the fact that an American spent 3 years incarcerated, lost their job, maybe ended their marriage, their kids don't know who the hell they are? You realize the damage that you could be doing?
Here we are 2 years later. Do you have the same passion for the January 6 people that are sitting in jail?
The January 6 people are on video committing a crime. What do you want me to say?
Not all of them.
You're telling me there's somebody sitting in jail for January 6th that's not on video or anything?
They might have been on video as the police were opening the doors for them to go in, but they don't show those videos.
I've seen the videos. I'd have to see more about whoever you believe is innocent from that day, completely innocent. I'd have to see videos of it because to me, it's like breaking into a damn Best Buy doing a Black Lives Matter rally. You have no business being in here. You have no business in here.
Elliot, what do you suppose I'm afraid of, my friend? And I don't hate you, Elliot. I kind of think you're cute. I like the beard.
Okay, well,
you know, and you talked about the weapons. They're not allowed to have 50 cals. They're not allowed to have a tank.
Why would you need a 50 cal in America?
To knock out somebody else that's got one.
You don't need if I'm shooting at you from across the street with a 50 cal, you don't need a 50 cal to defend yourself against me. I mean, a 50 cal is beyond overkill.
But once again, I default to the blue. I want them to have enough protection that every one of them goes home. I don't care about the perpetrator. I care about everybody that puts on that badge.
You sound like you don't care about the citizens, not just the perpetrators. You're giving the police widespread, you're giving them benefit of the doubt up to believing that whatever they're doing has to be right against an American citizen. Where are my libertarians at? Because what you're talking about would probably be insulting to a constitutionalist, which are generally libertarians. Because 50, you're saying get them whatever they need. What if they're not telling the truth? What if they just want to use new toys like MRAMs and tanks and shit?
Well, let me ask you this. Times Square has become a gun-free zone. Where do you suppose the gun violence is going to increase in New York?
Gun violence increases wherever you can have guns. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but
just
the
simple, just
gun-free
like
zone, when nobody can defend themselves, the crooks don't care about those signs you put up. The crooks aren't
well.
going to say, oh, gun-free zone, I need to check it. They're going to
So
carry
what?
that in. They don't care. So
So what?
now the law-abiding citizens are unarmed.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is because if there's a location where people cannot carry guns, that's the most likely location where people are going to be victimized by criminals.
Absolutely.
I disagree with that. I'll tell you why. First of all, there are a ton of cops because of terrorism floating around Times Square because of all of the terrorist acts and things like that that happened in New York. So if you think you're going to pull out a gun and start taking out citizens because they do not have guns, you're going to have feds and agents popping out of that crowd from everywhere. That is a heavily armed, protected area because it's one of the #1 tourist sites in America. So good luck doing that. You're not going to escape. There are cameras. Every inch of that area is covered on video. If you pull out a gun in Times Square, the chances of you getting caught or killed are probably well over 90%.
Is it the same way in Chicago in their gun-free area?
Chicago doesn't have any gun-free areas. To be honest with you, you can now get a gun in Chicago. A lot of the right-wing talking points on the gun laws in Chicago are actually not true. Being a resident, I don't live in Chicago anymore, but being born and raised, living there for 30 years, and all my family is there. Most of my family have guns there. They don't have a problem. It takes maybe a week longer to get it, but it's a few extra hoops to get it. But as long as you don't have a criminal record, you can get a pistol in Chicago. It's not as hard as the right leads you to believe.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. What ended up happening is a few years ago, maybe a decade or so ago, Chicago was sued in the Supreme Court. And it was based on we have Second Amendment rights, and they won. So the citizens of Chicago, if you want to have a firearm, you can have one. They don't tell you that on right-wing media a lot. You might not be able to get a 50 cal, for instance, but if you just want a shotgun or a pistol to defend you in your home, you can get that in Chicago.
And the part about the chokehold, if you're resisting arrest, at that point, I will defend anything the cops do to put you down.
So if I take off and run because I don't want to be arrested, you're okay with the cops pulling out a gun and shooting me in the back to take me down?
No, I'm just physically resisting. If you're fighting with a law officer, they should be able to do whatever they can do to put you down.
Okay, so I'll rephrase it. The cop tries to arrest me. I'm 6'6", 300 pounds. I'm not a small guy. Cop tries to arrest me. Little tiny female cop. Let's say she 5'1", 140 pounds. She tries to arrest me. I shove her. Get the hell away from me, bitch. And I start walking away. I physically touch
you
her.
right now.
No, but what you said anything. If she pulls out her service pistol and shoots me, you said anything.
I'm talking about, we're talking hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, now you're tailoring your statement. Your statement included the word anything in it.
Well, I want the cops to go home safe. I could care less about the lawbreaker at all.
What about the citizens? You're any concern that they make it home safe?
Yeah, if they're not breaking the law, absolutely.
Okay. What about the notion that a penalty should fit the crime? In other words, I can break the law, but your response to me should fit what I done. I mean, you don't want me to be passing a fake $20 bill and all of a sudden I'm suffocated to death. You don't support that, do you?
No, that in George Floyd's case, that cop was an idiot.
Okay, but he did
But I
anything to put him down. He
but
did
I
anything
think,
to put him down.
but George Floyd and that cop had a previous history too, and a
Okay.
lot of people forget to point that out. They had worked together in the past. They knew one another. The cop knew who he was dealing with, and George Floyd knew who he was up against. That
Well,
was something different.
well, if you got a man who is already handcuffed on his belly with 3 people sitting on him, I don't think anybody's going to give a damn about their previous relationship. What you're doing at this point, I don't care if he's a serial killer. At some point, you got to get the man up off the ground who's already handcuffed and put him in the car. I mean, if he's struggling and you got him handcuffed and he's still struggling, the next step is generally to hog tie him. But to just sit and ride on him like you're filming a Captain Morgan commercial, you can't do that.
No,
So
I
the
don't agree.
relationship-
I don't agree at all with what that policeman did to George Floyd.
Yeah.
He was dead wrong.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, there was something more with their personal relationship, whether he was just being like, look, you son of a bitch, I got you now. You got me the first time. Now I'm getting you back. There was an extra level of I would say, hatred between those two that doesn't normally occur. The cop doesn't normally have that relationship with someone.
Well, William Long 69 in the comments is saying Floyd actually died because of drugs. Did you see that? Well, what about
Well, and he
Kobe?
may have, and he might have, but Chauvin or whatever his name was, he had no business. You know, when the crowd is saying, "Get off the man's neck," you've been on there too long. If you're on there for a minute to get him cuffed, you got him cuffed, get off him. You know, he went too far.
All right. God, okay. All right. Well, listen, I got to move it on, man. Somebody told me to ask, what if Trump gets arrested and he resists and gets attacked and dies? I got to move it on, 52.
All right. Be good, my friend.
Absolutely. A pleasure. Talk to you later.
In the comments, let me see here. If Trump gets arrested and resists, and the police kill President Trump, oh my God. That would probably look like the Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing, just with a bunch of white people. I think the entire Watts riots would be imitated by a bunch of white people if Trump got arrested and they beat the shit out of Trump and he died. I think it would literally look exactly like the Watts riots. But it is a funny thing, and I see all of the emojis of laughing coming. All right, the BS that resulted from the George Floyd video was clearly by left-wing design. Brian Front, I wish you'd come in the box, and I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I promise I'd let you speak. As I make it clear to all my MAGA folks, and since I'm asking for 15,000 likes, tap your screen. But also, I make it clear to my MAGA folks, this is a MAGA-friendly audience. Don't let the name fool you. I will put you on and let you get your point across, even if you disagree. If you look at my videos on my profile, the very first one, top left-hand corner, features a MAGA caller cussing me the hell out. I didn't ban him. I didn't block him. He still has access to the channel. All right, looking back in the box here. Chris, just saying. Welcome to the program that sounds, I don't think we've talked before. And William Long, I do see you in there. Saying good afternoon.
Well, hello there.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
They're revoking bail in Illinois. You for that or against that?
I'm against that because I am a native Illinoisan / Southeast Wisconsin.
Okay.
And here's a couple of
You're
things.
over, you're talking Lake County. You're talking Lake County, Waukegan area.
Yeah, Chicago area. City of Chicago, but also Waukegan, Lake County, Kenosha. I went to school in Milwaukee. Was born in Kenosha.
So did I. I actually did a few years in Milwaukee, John Marshall High School, right off of 64th and Capitol. If you're familiar with Milwaukee, I am very.
Yeah. I taught at Washington High School on Sherman.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I lived around the corner from you, 45th and North Avenue. I know right where you're talking about.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So you're against it based on what?
Here's I'm against it based on this. First of all, I'm gonna preface like this. I believe that Republicans and Democrats have the same goal. A lot of us are getting on here and we're talking to the extremes. Like I feel like 52% was an extreme. You're not an extreme on. I don't know what side you're on, but you don't seem like an extreme no matter what side you're on. I think the
I'm
problem on
not.
the internet is we're talking to all of these extremes where they're not clearly articulating their thoughts. Now, as far as with the Chicago thing, first of all, we both know Chicago. I was dealing with gangs back in those days, so I know how
Okay.
dangerous Chicago is. I don't think you should lighten up on criminals. My thing is, why are we changing how we police versus, I mean, how we uh, 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 operate far as law versus changing how we police?
Because
Also, changing how.
the police have failed the public miserably. Do you realize how many tens of millions of dollars Chicago, the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, and the state of Illinois has paid to folks who have been mistreated by police? How many death
No, I
row?
agree.
Yeah, that's
I
why
agree.
it's being changed. That's
But
why it's
here's
being
the thing. Now it goes back to what you call it was talking about jurisdiction earlier. First of all, abolish the police because
huh?
they're not there. Yeah, I'm one of those conservatives that say get rid of the police. Yes,
And replace them with what?
sheriffs. First of all, because sheriffs
Explain the
are
difference.
the
Explain
only.
the difference.
I'm gonna give you this because he was talking about in jurisdiction, which sheriffs is the only people who have the power to charge and convict. Right? Reason why, if you ever notice, police bring a prisoner to where to be booked to the
To
sheriff's
the
station. Police
okay.
cannot book you. They can hold you, but they have to wait for a sheriff to be booked because they're the only ones bound to the Constitution, the only legal entity, right? This is what, and this is why y'all should probably go take dude's class. He'll tell you all about jurisdiction. Police, again, he said, are policy. The problem with what we're doing is we have a bunch of policy enforcers who overstep in a lot of different ways. And this is why we see this issue because they're not bound to the Constitution. They're bound to the city organization, which is pushing policy. This is why there's municipal courts as well as circuit courts. Circuit courts are ran by the sheriff, by the county or the state, or county most likely. And then municipal is ran by the city. Two
Okay.
different things.
Let me interrupt you. Here's the problem I have. Certainly being African American like yourself, when it comes to us, the sheriffs, the history of the sheriffs is far worse than the police. I mean, they're the ones who would refuse to you're talking about they can convict. They're the ones that were refusing to do anything to help us out. I'm nervous about that. I would be
So,
very
but,
nervous.
but for,
Let
right.
me I'll let you continue. I'll let you continue. But here's the
Oh,
second thing
sorry.
I have. I want as many people in the conviction or in the arrest process as possible. I don't want to give all the power to one dude because if one guy makes a mistake, the checks and balances are far more limited. Let the police drop me off at the sheriff and have that chain of command so there's more people involved in what happened. Did I lose you, Chris? Chris, are
Can you
you
still hear
there?
me? Can you still hear me?
I
Can you
got you
still
now.
hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I get that logic as well. For my thing is we already have a bad police system. We already have it bad. Like you said earlier, there's innocent people being put in jail. And I
Right.
agree. I know a lot of people that I grew up with who were innocently put in jail, right? The problem to me is not the policing or the laws. The problem is those who are what's the word? Enacting and enforcing the law, or also judging. I'll give you an instance, and I'll give you an instance in my case. I remember when I was younger and I was in dealing with the gangs and stuff, and I don't want to give too many details because I'm not going to self-incriminate, because a lot of stuff I did not get, in trouble for. But one thing I did notice is that every time I ever got arrested, suspected of something, I had DAs lying to me, I had detectives lying to me in order for me to self-convict. There's a big problem with the ability for people who are conviction. The problem is not the police for me. The problem is those who are prosecuting. They get in here and it's a game to them. There is too many incentives for prosecutors and judge to put people into this prison system. That
So
has to go.
how would going to sheriffs make any changes to this stuff?
Now, what
You
I'm
would just
saying is
make the
going to
sheriffs because
like
the sheriffs would be you would just switch the corruption to the sheriffs.
the reason why, because I'm saying that changing the laws for how police are doing things, like to enforce those laws, like also with cash bail and all this stuff, they all kind of work together. You start limiting what the police can do when you start limiting the incentives of the prosecutors and judges. You got to remember, these police are doing the biddings of whatever the prosecutor, the judge, and the mayor of that city is enacting.
Right.
So
Okay.
if we start limiting the benefits that those entities get, then you'll start seeing a difference in policing. There won't be an incentive to get this man into the prison system or get this man arrested,
Here's
because these
why
cops are not.
here's why I disagree with you. A sheriff is an elected official, just like the mayors and things. You're blaming the cops are doing the bidding
Mhm.
for the mayor. You're basically suggesting that the cops are doing the bidding for elected officials. By getting rid of the cops, you're just giving the gun and the powers to elected officials. Even if you don't agree with what the cops are doing, they're doing it on behest of elected officials.
Right.
If the city wants police to get tough on crime, they vote in a mayor that's tough on crime, and he instructs his police to be tough on crime. If the city is
Right.
tough on crime, they're going to elect the sheriff that's tough on crime. And since he doesn't have any police, he's going to do the same thing. I don't see how it changes.
Here's how it changes. One, whatever you don't like, when you put and this is the problem with the people, and I say this all the time. Reason why we got the problems we have now with we don't hold our politicians and the people that we elect to what we're supposed to be doing, is keeping them in checks and balances. Obviously, there's a lot of big problems. All I'm saying is this: if we want to start fixing the problem, first of all, we got to reorder some systems here. Police are not elected. They At the end of the day, this is why you guys got to understand what jurisdiction is. Police
Yeah, I
do
get
not.
that.
One thing that people got to understand: police are not our servants. Police are the mayor's servants. We elect the mayor, and by default, we are so-called. This is why when people say I'm your boss and all those auditors, they're wrong when they're dealing with police. When you're dealing with sheriffs, yes, they're right, because they're elected officials. But we don't control the police, because again, there's a difference between enacting being subject to the constitution of your state and country, versus I am subject to the policies of the city and the mayor. Those are two different things. These are the problems we're running into, because now we got to look at the sheriffs and the police as two different things, because one is elected, one is not. And the problems that we see are coming from police, a lot of
Right.
them at
I
this
guess
point.
Okay, I do got to move it on, but before I part ways with you, I guess the problem where you and I disagree is I believe whether you're arrested by a police or you're arrested by a sheriff, they're both acting on behalf of what they believe the constituents want. The police are not doing it because they're, as you say, they're not elected, they're appointed, but they're still acting on behalf of somebody who was elected and passing the information down. By putting sheriffs in place, you just take police out of the picture and give them the power that the mayor or another elected official might want to have. They're still going to do the same thing. If you got a
Right, but
town,
no,
if
I
you
don't
got
agree.
a
This
town
is
that
what
is
I'm
tough,
saying.
okay, go ahead. I give you the last word. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Because what you're saying is we're still going to have this, we're still going to have this. Then what are we complaining about? We either going to try something that's going to work, because one, for me, regardless of whether the sheriffs come in and take order, sheriffs are governed by a different policy that we can actually make change in. And this is all I'm saying. If we understand jurisdiction and law, there's this guy called Evergreen on here, and I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't
He
think so.
Evergreen is very knowledgeable in how law and legalese work. If you want to
Okay.
start making change in police policy, we can't sit here and say, well, the sheriffs is going to take over and do the same thing. They're not. The reason why the police are doing so much more is because they are not beholden to the Constitution. People keep saying they take an oath. No, these men are beholden to their boss, which is the city. There's two different sworn-ins for police and sheriff. They're not the same. And this is one of the things that if we want to truly make a change, all of this stuff by making laws easier for criminals, to me, that is a loss to make, just because some innocent people get caught in the trap or get caught in their trap, instead of correcting the people who are catching these innocent people in traps. If you give accurate information. If police are not allowed to act on information that's not accurate, then we will have less innocent people in jail. The problem is not people getting put in jail. The problem is we have police out here who are enacting. Well, we talk about the what's the lady that got shot and killed because they were trying to arrest her boyfriend?
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. That would have never happened if the police had accurate information before they did that whole no-knock warrant. The problem is that we're allowing these police to go rogue instead of reeling them in. Not necessarily the process that people are going to jail. Now we didn't change cash bail. Now who's going to get off is the criminals. The criminals are going to get out and they're going to do crimes again, and then we're going to be crying about that again and saying, wait a minute, now the criminals, now it's switched. Instead of innocent people going to jail, now guilty people are getting out.
All right. Okay.
Why would we want that?
Okay, fair enough. We can agree to disagree with this, but I do got to move it on, man.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Appreciate you coming through. Okay, and you're welcome. Anytime. Like I say all the time, folks, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. I let folks get their point across. I disagree with the gentleman based on the notion that there are plenty of sheriffs getting in trouble for corruption as well. That's all I'm going to suggest. That he's saying that sheriffs, because they are elected as opposed to appointed like police, somehow they will do the job more properly. Well, at the end of the day, a lot of them are getting charged for screwing up as well. Your humble correspondent, obviously the gentleman disagrees with me, but I believe a lot of the things that they're doing in Illinois are going to ultimately be beneficial. What are we talking about? I just want you to hear this one quick more time. This is what we're discussing. This is an Illinois attorney talking about the new laws in Illinois.
Here are some of the highlights of the new Illinois Criminal Justice Reform Law. All Illinois police officers must wear a body camera on their person by 2025. Police officers within Chicago and the surrounding suburbs must wear body cameras by January 1st, 2022. This includes Cook County, Kane County, Lake County, and Will County. Police departments are prohibited from buying and or using military-grade equipment, such as .50 caliber guns and tanks. Police officers are now prohibited from chokeholds on suspects. Police officers in the state of Illinois are now required to train further on using force against suspects, crisis and first aid training. The Illinois minimum wage will increase January 1st, 2022 to $12 an hour and increase $1 per year per hour until January 1st, 2025.
William Long, welcome back to the program. William Long, what do you think about that reform in the state of Illinois? Do you agree with that?
First of all, it's good to see you again here. And
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go through the bullet points here. Must wear a body cam. I don't believe anybody has an issue with that. I believe every police officer should wear a body cam. We can all agree on that.
We agree.
Absolutely. Next. The no chokehold. Now, the person being arrested isn't doing anything wrong or not fighting back. Yeah, the police officers shouldn't lay a hand on them besides their cuffs and arrest the guy. But if you are doing hand-to-hand combat and somebody is fighting you, you should be able to do whatever is necessary hand-to-hand wise to get him in cuffs and make sure that you're safe.
Let me respond to that. Let's say, and I guess I'm going to bring up the most well-known case. If you got someone passing a fake $20 bill, for instance, and they're resisting arrest, is it really so important that you arrest them for that particular crime that you are willing to potentially take their life? I mean, you're talking about passing a fake $20 bill and you're using a chokehold to make that arrest happen. Is it really that important to arrest him for that crime?
Well, I mean, did you watch all the videos? Because that's not what went down.
Let's not go straight. I'm just using that example because that happened. But let's say all of the stuff you're talking about didn't happen. Let's just say someone else, not Floyd himself. Someone else was taking a bag of potato chips or trespassing somewhere they shouldn't be or something. A very low-level crime. Is it worth putting them in a chokehold that could potentially end their life
to make an arrest for that low-level crime.
So what do? Do you just let him go then? Oh,
Well,
the assailant's going to start fighting the police officer. You know what? We give up. You do what you have to do. Go ahead. I'm talking about people that are fighting police. Now, George Floyd, let's go back there. That was wrong. I'm not saying that sitting on his neck for that long was proper. We can all agree that it wasn't.
yeah.
I
Well,
understand when they're trying
okay,
to arrest somebody, they put a knee in the neck, and that's what their training is. And
bro, that's why you
normal
have
circumstances, it doesn't choke you.
That's why you have less lethal weapons. That's why they call off high-speed chases. Sometimes making the arrest is more dangerous than the crime they're actually committing. If you're
Well,
going to ultimately take someone's life because, well, he was trespassing, we had to arrest him. Yeah, sometimes you may have to say, we know who the person is. This is worth getting them next time. It's not worth going through all of this. If it's only one or two of you, or to the point where you got to actually put him in a lethal maneuver to arrest him for a low-level crime, yeah, it might be actually a better public policy to let him go. I mean, George Floyd wasn't going to exactly tear down the community if he had got away. I mean, he was passing a fake $20 bill.
George Floyd was already in handcuffs. That he was in the cop car, and then he was banging his head and I believe kicking, and he said he wanted to get out, that he was claustrophobic.
Yeah,
and he was then fighting again. That's just a different situation. It
what
was
about the
wrong.
guy? What about the guy who was selling loose cigarettes? And they came and tried to grab him, and he resisted, and they jumped up and put him in the chokehold and killed him as well.
I mean, don't fight police. I don't know how else to
No,
say it.
I get that.
I mean,
I
damn,
get
it's
that
so
you should
stupid
not.
to do that. You
Yeah,
are
I
taking the
get that.
responsibility in your own hands when you say, hey, look,
Yeah,
I'm going to fight police. And you know what? There could be something where they could kill me because I'm fighting them.
I get that you should certainly be responsible for your actions. I think fighting police or even arguing with police is dumb as hell. I get that. But if everybody was nice, we wouldn't need police to begin with. The reason you have the job is because people out there are going to fuck up occasionally. You can't kill them all as a solution. So I'm suggesting that when you deal with people who are fighting, there should be something more that you weigh other than just simply, hey, you did it. This is what comes to it. I mean, if you got to use a lethal chokehold on somebody for a misdemeanor or some low-level crime, would it be that horrible to say we'll get this guy next time?
I mean, if it endangers innocent people, like high-speed chases and stuff like that, I agree with. Call it off. If you got the tag, you know who it is, blah, blah, blah. But when you're coming up behind somebody and no other person is in danger, like citizen-wise, and it's just the police officer and the person that's suspected of the crime, like the police officer just doesn't beat you up. It's, hey, you're getting detained for this, da 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 da. Put your hands behind your back, please. And that's how it always starts. Now,
Not
if
always.
you
Well,
escalate it, that's on you if you escalate it.
Well, let me correct you in that. Um, Now, when you see these arrests on television, it does appear as if, particularly with the African American crowd, it does appear as if it starts out with them always resisting an arrest, and that's how they lead to their fate. However, when you start investigating some of these arrests and some of these ultimate deaths, it turns out some of the resisting they were doing was actually legal, such as Sandra Bland, for instance, when she got pulled over for a tail light violation or something like that. And the cop
Mm-hmm.
started asking her to get out of the car, and she didn't want to get out of the car. Well, it turns out the cop had no right to tell her to get out of the car. But because she didn't listen, he escalated the situation, and somehow she ended up dead. Same thing happened with the guy in Baltimore, where that ultimately led to a lot of rioting and a CVS being set on fire that you saw on Fox News over and over again. The guy simply made eye contact with police and took off running. They chased him, caught him, put him in the back of a paddy wagon, somehow unrestrained, and by the time he got to the police station, he was dead. But looking back,
you have no right to arrest somebody for making eye contact and running. So even though it seems like the African American crowd is fighting back, a lot of the shit they're doing is constitutionally protected. I don't have to talk to you, sir. I don't have to show you ID, sir. You don't have a warrant to search my car. A lot of the cops, I'll submit to you, do not know the Constitution. Folks are filming them on the street, and particularly some of my white YouTubers out there that do these police audits. It is insane that in 2022, so many police officers are failing basic audits, such as you can't just walk up to a person and demand ID, or you can't just forcibly search somebody that's doing them wrong. How many cops are still failing this shit? So I'll let you continue, but it seems like the cops need to learn the law.
And I'm going to respond to that. I do believe there are uninformed police officers that need more training. I do believe that they need to be held accountable for when they blatantly do something wrong, like Chauvin staying on his neck for 9 minutes. Like when stuff like that happens, you have to take responsibility. And you know what? They found him guilty. Like justice was served.
Yeah.
He took a life, and now he's got what, 20 years or some. I'm not saying that there isn't bad apples, but maybe we'll hear of a bad police interaction. I don't know. Let's just say at most 10 times a year, and that's pretty high. Okay, when something very
accurate,
freakishly happens. Well,
that's not accurate though.
So how many Breonna Taylor stories did we have this year?
And that's what I'm saying why it's not accurate. When we think about bad policing, we think about Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and folks like that. Rodney King didn't get killed. In reality, when we're talking about bad policing, I'm talking about you don't have a right to search me, sir, unless you have a warrant. Who the hell are you? Slam you in the car, go through your pockets. You lucky you don't have shit. Go home. That's bad policing. That doesn't make the news. That doesn't make the news. So when you talk about how much bad policing happens, it happens a lot. It's just that people don't die. It doesn't get video, and the news is not there. But citizens have their rights violated probably thousands of times per day. Go.
This is why I agree with the body cams, and I think it'll prevent a lot of this. The body cams are going to stop bad policing. And if not, they're going to get caught. So that's perfect. I totally agree with that. But do you know there's over 12 million interactions a year between citizen and police officers? A lot of them, most of them go properly. And people don't understand that. They just cherry pick the little ones that are, let's blow this up. And as tragic as some of them are, okay, sometimes a police officer has a split decision. And Breonna Taylor, they were drug dealers. I don't get why they think, her boyfriend used her as a shield as he was firing at police. I mean, that whole situation, I'm sorry, but when you shoot at the police, they shoot you back. And they were drug dealers.
Wait. They've already proven that the police officers lied to get the warrant in the first place. They had no business there. They didn't find any drugs in that house. I don't care if I'm selling kilos. If you show up to my house, and they lied and said the home was consistently receiving FedEx packages and packages coming to the home. Turns out it was a total fabrication. So you can say they're drug dealers. You can say they're drug dealers or whatever you want to say. It's clear that the police are also liars. So the police were wrong in that. If you really want to catch a drug dealer, how hard is that to do? You don't have to make up shit. There's people that just have somebody buy drugs from them.
I mean, they had video or audio tape of her boyfriend in prison calling and talking about the drugs they were dealing. I don't understand why they needed even more than that to get a warrant. I haven't seen the lie. This is the first time I heard of it because that
just look it up. They've been charged.
Yeah, no, I will.
They've been charged with that. They actually been charged with lying. They completely fabricated the evidence they had to get the warrant. Just look that up. I will tell you this also. You let me know what you think. When you have a home surrounded, why not use a megaphone? Nobody can get out of there. You got guns trained on the house. Why not first see if they actually will come out? Do you have to break in the middle of the night, knowing that a drug dealer is likely to have firearms, and putting yourself and officers in a potential gun battle when you could just surround a house and get on the megaphone? Why not try that first?
You get on the
Thank you for that
megaphone.
hat.
Well, you get on the megaphone and you say, "Hey, this is the police. Please come out." Girlfriend's flushing the 2 kilos of coke down the fucking drain. So now you have no evidence. It's hard to do that. Now, if you in a different situation, like if like a murderer has himself barricaded in the house, I can see the megaphone calling him out, surround, da da da. They're trying to catch them in the act of having drugs. It's too easy to flush it at that point. If you're just hey, come
Well,
out here. I know you have drugs in there. Flush, flush, flush. No, I don't. What are you talking about?
well,
Like
if you
that's
want to, it's pretty. If you want to catch a person that's dealing drugs, why not just buy drugs from him and arrest him on the spot?
and I agree with you. I'm not saying that they handled it perfectly either.
Yeah.
It's policing needs to be done better. We can't abolish the police. Not all cops are bad because that's fake news. That's such a lie. Most of the police officers are very good people and they just want to protect their community. And if these people in the comments want to change their community, why don't they go apply down at the police station and they can make a difference?
Okay. Well, you obviously are triggering someone. Someone said, who was that? Tushy123 said, I listen to your show a lot, but this person, someone disagrees with you. That's fine. But I will
I hear
say
you. Yeah.
this. Yeah, I will just say this. Um, there are a lot more ways you could deal with somebody, particularly when it comes to drugs, that does not put the police at risk. That does not put the police in the middle of what could be a shootout. When you go in somebody's house at 1, 2 in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning and catch them off guard, certainly when you think they're a really bad guy like that with drugs, you're really increasing the chances that either you're going to get shot at or you're going to have to shoot and kill somebody. If you think the guy is dealing drugs, like I said, make a drug deal and arrest them on the spot there, or sit on the damn house. And when they leave the house, go in there.
Go
But
and arrest
the
them. Yeah.
way they do it, the way they perform the warrants are about that's about as close as you can do to guaranteeing there will be some violence. Because the way they set it up, if you break in somebody's house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when they're sleeping, whether they are a good guy or a bad guy, if they're armed, the first thing they're going to do is grab for their gun. You're guaranteeing that. So
Oh,
there has to be an easy way to go around that.
it's going to be the same way in my house. I mean, I'm grabbing
Yeah,
my gun. That's the first thing I'm doing at 2 in the morning.
right.
Somebody busting in.
So,
I mean, I
so
agree, but if I'm committing crimes and I know I'm a drug dealer and they come in and I mean, you have to know they're there for you.
no, you don't. If you wake somebody up in the middle of the night, they're not even coherent enough to know what you're there for at all. All I hear is bang in the middle of the night. If I'm dealing drugs, I know drug dealers want to kill my ass just as much as the cops want to arrest me. So if
They
someone
did
comes
say
in my house
police
in the
though.
middle of the night, if somebody comes in your house in the middle of the night, you don't know if it's a drug rival or the cops. All you know
Yeah.
is it's in your best interest to grab your weapon and be ready to defend yourself.
All I
There
know is
has
that
to be a better way.
dealing drugs like that, you end up two ways. You end up in prison or you end up dead. I mean, those are facts. And I mean,
Yeah,
I
but you're
hate to say it,
putting
man.
Yeah, but you're also putting cops in harm's way unnecessarily. Let's say we don't give a
All right.
damn about the drug dealers. I'm with that. But why put cops unnecessarily in harm's way? You could easily make it so less of them are being killed in this shit.
I mean, I hear you, and it's unfortunately that's their policies with these no-knock warrants and late in the middle of the night. They think it's better to catch them off guard. Now, in this case, it could have been handled much differently. I agree. I mean, but it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's can't change it,
Well,
and I mean,
that's what happens when your primary focus is on making the arrest as opposed to the safety of everybody. I'm more focused on making sure we catch the drugs and get an arrest than making sure no officers are harmed or we don't have to kill a citizen. We're prioritizing the arrest above the safety of human beings. And that's why they do that.
yeah, and I don't know the severity of it all. I mean, I was told that they found you know what was it evidence of a body being in her trunk or and I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, I know, look it up. I don't know how true it is, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know what information they had. I don't know what information they lied about. I just don't know enough about it. All I'm saying is I know the life of crime. I know if you don't want police officers at your door, do the right thing because they're not just going to come there. Now, I know that there are accidents, wrong addresses, shit like that does happen. It's very rare. But if you want to limit yourself with police interaction, stop breaking the law. I mean, plain and
Well,
simple.
I don't
Stop
I
breaking
don't
the
dis
law.
I don't disagree with that, but if you want to suggest that everybody complies with the law, that has to extend to the police as well. Just
I
because
agree.
I break the law should not excuse you from holding the police accountable for breaking the law on me. If you want good people, the police have to be among them. You are committing the crime, so if he beats your ass, I don't care. Well, if beating someone ass is a crime, wearing a badge should not excuse that. You get what I'm
No, it
saying?
shouldn't. Oh
All
yeah,
right.
I
All
agree
right.
with that. You make the arrest and then it's over. Put him in the
Okay.
car, send him to jail. But as the no bail reform, like I don't agree with that either. You're allowing people to hit the streets that have just committed a crime or suspected of committing a crime, and you're going to just allow them to go right back out. That's not very smart.
What about people who are charged with a crime? Poor people, like let's say we're talking about drug dealers. Let's say someone was charged with selling drugs that was not doing it. They get a bill they cannot afford, and they spend 6 months, a year, 2 years in jail until the trial comes up, and it's proven at trial that they never should have been charged, and they're let out. What happens to the year or 2 years they spent in jail? Are you concerned with the fact that everybody that beats their charges lost a certain period of their lives in county jail that they cannot get back? Plus, maybe their job, maybe their spouse, maybe their children don't know who the hell they are now because they've been in jail. Are you concerned with all of the stuff that innocent people are losing when they spend time in jail because they cannot afford that bill?
Absolutely. And if we're going to do this no bail reform, if this is the route that they want to take, then they need to have a hearing. I'm talking almost immediately, and everybody that gets arrested needs a hearing. And if not, then you bail yourself out. See that hearing, within a couple of days, you can say, okay, show me your evidence. Well, no, judge, it wasn't me. I did not do this. I prompted da 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 without going through the whole trial. Okay, you make your determination as the judge then. Okay, do I revoke the bail and just let this person go? Or does the police have enough evidence right now in this pretrial to say, you know what, we're holding this dangerous person? Or I believe that they did do the crime. So, no, your bail is going to be this much because I want you to return to court. That's all bail is for, is to make sure
Yeah.
you come back. Now, if the migrants on the southern border had to pay like a fee to get in here and they got that money back after they went to court to get your citizenship or your green card, or when you commit a crime here and you're illegal, they just let you go, and most of the time they never go back to the court system.
I
Now,
get your point. I get your point. And
yeah.
there's legitimate reasons for bail. I do. But listen, William, I gotta move it on. Appreciate you
All right,
coming
buddy.
through. Hey,
Good
good
talking
talk.
to you.
Now, William is correct.
There are reasons for bail, as he stated. If they're not holding collateral on you, there may be no legitimate reason, in your opinion, if you're a criminal, to even come back and answer the call. Therefore, a warrant is going to be put for your arrest. However, what we also don't suggest is that folks are also using bail to keep people in jail, which is why they set it based oftentimes on how much you're worth and things like that. So it's not always just a measure of making sure you show up to court. Sometimes it's because I want to put him in jail before we find him guilty. I so strongly believe we got a guilty guy. I want to set bail higher than he can afford so that we can start punishing him now. So we're literally going to treat him as if he's guilty before he is actually found guilty, which is why you often hear a lot of people get credit for quote unquote time served, meaning they've already been holding this guy. He just got found guilty or innocent today, but he's already did a hell of a lot of time. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? If you're not proven guilty,
You shouldn't have served a single day in jail yet. People get killed in county jail waiting for trial. In other words, people who have not been convicted of a single crime get raped, get their ass kicked in jail, and often lose their lives before ever being convicted of a single crime. It's supposed to be America. Home of the brave, land of the fucking free. What sounds free about that? I mean, seriously. Real quick, I do got to go. I'm on lunch break, but I want to say this before I go. One of the solutions in policing, coming from your humble correspondent, we're going to talk about this tonight at 7. I invite all of you guys to follow the channel. As I make it clear, it is a MAGA-friendly audience. For those who are turned off by the damn name, don't be turned off by the name. I do talk to MAGA all the time, all day, every day. You get to speak your opinion. No banning, no blocking, no censorship here. If TikTok lets you say it, by God, you can say it on the channel. One of the best reforms for police, coming from your humble correspondent, that I believe you need to have insurance as a condition of being in law enforcement. If you're a truck driver, you got to have insurance. Otherwise, your CDL is useless. If you're a doctor, you have to have malpractice insurance. Otherwise, you cannot practice as a physician. They need to have that for law enforcement. Reason why? Right now, when a law enforcement officer does wrong, the job is on the restitution comes from the taxpayers. If it came from insurance companies, take Derek Chauvin, for instance, the guy who took the life of George Floyd. He had 20 some odd accusations of police brutality. Although he beat each one of them before taking the life of George Floyd, the insurance companies are going to investigate that, as opposed to taxpayers who just keep giving you jobs, allowing you to switch from police department to police department. The insurance companies are capitalists. They're not coming out of government coffers. They want to stay in business. They do not want to insure risky people, which is why if you have multiple accidents or even warnings from police that do not even have tickets, the cost of your insurance will go up and they can ultimately stop insuring you. They don't want to pay claims. If you got a cop that is constantly being accused of shit, the insurance companies are going to start raising his premiums. And remember, you have to have insurance under this plan as condition to own a badge. You cannot be in law enforcement without having some type of insurance, which is what I'm suggesting. The insurance companies are going to hold the officers to a far stronger account than the taxpayers are. That way, when people are accusing that officer of shit, the insurance companies are going to send investigators out there. They're going to talk to people who are accusing them. They're going to talk to people who accuse them of the past, see if stories match, and start fucking with his premiums or refuse to insure him. That would be a far better way of getting bad cops out of the system. If you transfer to a different department, the first thing the insurance companies are going to want to know is, what was your record at the previous department? Just like in insurance business, if your house catches fire and you file a claim, that is on your insurance record for as much as a decade. So when you purchase another home, that insurance company, even if you switch insurance companies, they know about that fire you had in the past. So if you have a fire at this house, they're going to immediately start putting 2 and 2 together. You can't just bounce all over the damn country buying homes and having fires. They're not going to insure you. The police can do that. They can have a bad record at Department A, quit or resign or retire from Department A before it catches up to them, and get a job at Department B and start all over again. An insurance company would not allow that. 7 p.m. tonight, I encourage you to follow the channel. MAGA is always welcome, as well as liberals. Appreciate you guys. You've been a pleasure talking to you. I will see you again in the future. I see there's a individual in the comments said, yes, I'm a firefighter. I approve this message. Listen, this is not something the Republicans will be in favor of, I don't think. Talk to me at 7 o'clock tonight. Let's see what happens. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I got to go.